Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be filming a different kind of video. It's more of like a sit down, talk through, informative video. It is all about my experience having a C-section. I have a baby boy. He is now 7 months old. I know that I'm kind of late doing this video, but honestly, like, I don't know why I haven't done it sooner. I always wanted to do it, or like it was always in the back of my head, but I just never did it. I don't know. I just want to start off by saying that if you are scheduled to have a C-section, or if you end up having a C-section, just know that it's okay and don't be afraid. Know that there is a lot of fear, with having a C-section, and don't get me wrong, it is, considered a major surgery, but honestly, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, unless obviously like there was major complications, or if there are major complications, then that's something like totally different. But I'm just speaking about my experience, and I feel like it was pretty smooth, I'd say. I didn't have any complications. I recovered within, I feel like, a good time frame, and I just thought that I would share my experience and maybe help other people that are gonna have a C-section, or that have just had a C-section and they're trying to recover. I'm just gonna be talking about that in today's video. Okay, so just a little bit of background. I was scheduled to be induced right at 39 weeks. I went into the hospital on a Sunday evening, and my son came the next day on Monday morning. And I had a pretty fast labor, but I did have to have an emergency C-section because he pooped while he was still inside my belly, and his heart rate was fluctuating. It was dropping pretty low, and it came back up to normal, but then it happened a few times. So the doctors didn't want to take any chances, and so they told me that I was gonna have to have a C-section. They did tell me that some babies are okay with it and some aren't, and they didn't want to take any chances of him swallowing it or anything like that. This is what they were telling me when I was already 7 centimeters dilated. I already had the epidural. I was pretty much ready and waiting to get to 10 centimeters. So they basically prepped me, got me ready, and it was a pretty fast experience, or a pretty fast procedure. Or they were monitoring me around 7 in the morning. I think it was 7:30 in the morning when they were monitoring me and worried about his heart rate. And then he came at 9:05. So he came an hour and a half later. So it was pretty fast, and mind you that they already prepped me in all this time and everything like that. And by the time I got to the OR room, I couldn't feel one side of my body. It was super weird. I was completely numb. It just felt like I was out of my body, if that makes sense. I remember one side of my body being completely numb. I didn't feel anything, but on my left side, I think it was my left side, I still felt my feet, and I was super scared and panicking that they were gonna start. And I was trying to tell the nurse, because I mean they're going 100 miles an hour. They're getting everything ready. There's a bunch of nurses in the room. They're just getting everything ready, getting the baby's area set up, everything like that. So I remember telling the nurse, I was like, oh my god, I can feel my left foot, please don't start. I can feel my body, And she was like, no, don't be scared, don't panic, we're gonna make sure that you're completely numb before we do any cutting, or before we do anything. And I was like, okay, good, because I was scared that I was gonna feel that. Before they start anything, they make sure that you're completely numb. So that made me feel a little bit better. My boyfriend wasn't in the room yet at this point. He was still giving all of our stuff to my mom and his mom, because they were there waiting for us, and I was in a normal delivery room. So once they determined that I was gonna have to have the C-section, they said, to get all of our stuff, we weren't coming back to that room. We're gonna be in another postpartum room after I had the baby. So they said, get all your stuff, don't forget anything. So he was making sure that they had all of our stuff, and I was in the room, or on the OR table waiting for him. And I just remember panicking, oh my god, is he gonna make it in time? But because they were going so fast, I thought that they were already gonna start without him, but no, he was there. I just remember them putting up the sheet, because they put up the blue sheet so you don't see anything. I just remember being so tired and having the shakes really bad. I was really scared to fall asleep. I'm not gonna lie, that was probably the scariest part out of all of it, was me being so sleepy. And it was just because I was sleep deprived. I didn't sleep the night before. I think I slept maybe an hour or two altogether, because I was having contractions. I just remember feeling like so tired and sleepy, and like honestly I just didn't want to go to sleep. That was like the main thing. I was trying my hardest to stay awake because obviously I knew that I was gonna be able to hear my son cry, and I was just trying to stay awake as much as possible. So that was probably the scariest part for me, was just being like sleepy and like tired. I mean, I just didn't want to go to sleep because I was afraid of not waking up. Like honestly, if I'm being 100% honest, that is how I felt. But that was honestly the scariest part. So whenever they started the whole thing, I just remember like going in and out of like sleep. I remember falling asleep a little bit, or like, you know, when you like doze off and then you wake up after like 5 minutes or like a couple of minutes. I was awake, and then I heard my son cry, and I knew that he was here, so I started like crying. And then after that I was like awake, and they actually asked my boyfriend if he wanted to see my son, and of course he said yes. So he went over there, and the baby is by your legs, so the baby is on the other side of that blue like little sheet that they put up. So he was on the side where my legs were, and he did tell me that when he was going to see our son, he did turn around and he saw like everything that they were doing, and it freaked him out. He said he's scarred for life. He said he saw like my guts, and that he just saw them like tugging at me and like pulling at me. And all I remember is, you know, kind of moving or like rocking side to side, but I didn't actually feel anything. So, you know, obviously like they were moving me around to get the baby out, but he just remembers them like tugging at me and stuff. So that did freak him out a little bit, but I don't think like everybody sees what's going on. So I'm not sure like how he even peeked a look, but he for some reason like turned around and he saw everything, or like pretty much my guts and insides. So that was kind of funny, like him telling me after the fact. My boyfriend was actually the first one to have skin to skin with him, and after you have a C-section, they take you into, or at least with me, they took me into a like aftercare room, or like I don't know what they called it for sure, but we were in that room for 2 hours after I had my C-section, and they were just monitoring the baby, letting me get like that skin to skin time with him, and learning how to breastfeed and like things like that. So when they wheeled me over into that room, it was like really close to the OR room. But once we got into that room, I just remember seeing my boyfriend in the room, you know, with my son like all balled up and on his chest, and I hadn't seen his face yet. So I was like, oh my God, like, you know, I couldn't wait to see him. And like, I was just like, what does he look like? Like, let me see him. And so right away, as soon as I, you know, got into that room, the nurse gave me my son on my chest, and I just remember like, you know, finally meeting him and like seeing him for the first time. So it was a really, really, really awesome moment. Like I could probably cry just thinking about it right now. But they immediately wanted me to, you know, latch him and start breastfeeding him. And I just remember like laying completely flat at that point. They had to like check me out, check my incision, all of that stuff. And I remember the first time that they pressed on my uterus was in that recovery room, and that hurt really bad. I'm not gonna lie. It was really, really painful. Your abdomen feels really, really sore. It's like sore times 100. That's what it feels like. I just remember them coming to check me out, and then they did say that they had to put like I don't know what it's called, but it's like those, it kind of looks like a pee pad for dogs. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but they had those on the hospital bed for me, like after recovery and everything. And I remember the first time that they had to put it on the bed was right after my C-section, and I could feel the pain medicine like wearing off and like the anesthesia. So whenever she said, okay, you're gonna have to like lift up a little bit to get the little pee pad, I don't even know if that's what you call it, but I'm pretty sure there's another name for it, but that's what comes to my mind when I think about it. But they had to put that like under my bottom, so they told me to like kind of pick myself up a little bit, and it was like the worst pain ever. It hurt really, really bad. My incision, like, it just felt so sore, and I also had like a burning sensation too. I felt that a lot. Once they did all of that and the 2 hours passed, they moved us into a postpartum room, and at that point I was on bed rest for 12 hours after my C-section, and I had a catheter in and everything. They had these compression socks, or I don't know what they're called. I think they're called compression socks. I'm not sure. But they had those things on my calf. Main thing after that was just them coming to check up on me and my son. They came to ask me like my pain, what was my pain on a scale of 1 to 10, things like that. And then they explained like breastfeeding to me, you know, basically what I'm going to be doing for the next 12 hours, which was pretty much nothing. I was just strictly on bed rest, and that I was going to need a lot of help, you know, feeding my son and taking care of him and everything like that. Once the 12 hours passed, they wanted me to get up for the first time, and they wanted me to go to the restroom. So I remember the nurse, it was one nurse that helped me, and my boyfriend was in the room too. And I remember like the restroom not being far away, but it felt so far away because it was so painful to get up for the first time. Honestly, that was probably the worst part of it. It's the first day is the worst part of it. The first few like times where you have to use your muscles or like your abdomen, it's gonna hurt really bad, but you know, you'll get through it, and you don't remember it after a while, because I'm starting to forget kind of how it felt in that moment. But I do remember it did hurt quite a bit, and I do remember that I still felt that burning sensation, and I did have to get up, and the nurse helped me, and I just took it step by step. And she did ask me, she's like, can you make it to the restroom? You know, do you think you can get on the toilet? And I told her, I was like, I think I can, like, just, you know, give me a few minutes. Like, it'll take me a long time, but I think I can do it. And she was like, okay, just take your time. I'm here to help you. She was like holding my hand and my arm and stuff. And so I finally made it to the bathroom, and I went to the restroom for the first time by myself, and she helped me out so much. My nurse was so amazing. She did help me like go to the restroom and clean myself and change my pad and everything like that. Even if you don't have a vaginal birth, you still bleed after the fact. So you are gonna bleed for around 6 weeks or so after you have your baby. And after that first time of getting up, every time I got up after that felt a lot easier, and it did get easier each time. The only time that I got up was to go to the bathroom. Anytime that my son was crying or, you know, needed a change or anything like that, my boyfriend did change him and did get up and hand him to me. That's kind of how we did it. He would wake up. If he was crying, he would wake up, hand him to me so I could feed him, and then I'd hand him back and he'd put him back, or he would change him first, vice versa, whichever way. But that was kind of how we did it, and that's what worked for us. I did feel kind of sad and useless like at some point because I couldn't get up. But honestly, like, that's what it was. I mean, I had a C-section, so I wasn't gonna try to like force myself up really fast or anything like that, because it is painful. So that was kind of how we did it while we were in the hospital. I just remember them telling me to get up and moving as, you know, best as I could. And I remember Tuesday, which was the next day after I had him, I was getting up by myself, and I just remember feeling like the urge to walk, and it did hurt a little bit. Like, I had to hold my like belly, or I mean, I still had a belly at this point, but I remember like having to hold my belly in like my incision area to first start like walking, if that makes sense. It just hurt. So, but I just remember feeling the urge wanting to walk. So I asked the nurse if I could go in the hallway and like walk back and forth and stuff, and she was like, okay, like, you know, we'll send somebody you know, to help you, because they wanted someone to be there with me just in case of anything. So I did walk the halls like after having him, and I think that played a big part in like my recovery. The more that you get up and moving, I'm not gonna say like the faster you'll recover, but I mean, maybe you'll recover faster, but it'll also be a lot smoother, and you'll be able to find yourself, you know, feeling better faster. But I don't overdo it though. You always want to listen to your body, and if you're tired or if it hurts too much, like, don't push through that pain. Just kind of take it easy and then start again a little bit later or the next day. You don't want to do too much on your body right away, because you could hurt yourself in the long run. So I just remember having that urge to walk, and I think I only walked like 5-10 minutes, but it was something, and I did it because my body wanted to. I didn't just say, okay, I'm gonna walk because I have to make sure that I recover faster. I just felt, okay, my legs feel like they need to be walking, if that makes sense. And like, just my body just feels like it needs to move. So that's why I walked the next day. I went into the hospital on Sunday evening. I had my son Monday morning, and then I was able to go home on Wednesday. They wanted me to stay until Thursday, or they told me I could stay until Thursday, but I told them that I think I was ready to go home at that point. They did prescribe me some pain medicine, but it wasn't like the super strong kind that makes you like loopy. I didn't want that one just because I didn't want to be out of it when caring for my son. As far as like going home, I pretty much lived in like just loose clothes for the first part of my recovery. It was just a lot of like big t-shirts, loose pants, things like that weren't like tight. I even wore like my maternity leggings after that just because they came up like pretty high, and you know, it wasn't like painful or like hurting my incision area. But for me personally, and this is probably like TMI, but I know a lot of people say that it hurts to like go number 2 after you have your baby, even like vaginally or having a C-section. But for me, it didn't hurt me to go. When it came time, I remember being like so scared because I'm like, oh my God, it's gonna hurt, but it didn't. Like it felt a little uncomfortable and weird, but it didn't hurt, and it wasn't like painful to where I like wanted to cry or anything. So yeah, that was what it was like for me. I don't know if it was like hard on anybody else. Pretty much after the hospital stay and when we came home, my son slept in our room in his bassinet, and basically we were doing the same routine as we were doing in the hospital. My boyfriend was only off for 2 weeks after having our son. We would basically wake up in the middle of the night when he would cry, and he would get up and hand him to me, and then I'd hand him back to him, and he put him back in his bassinet, just because it was a lot easier that way, especially like during the night. I wasn't gonna try to like take 10-15 minutes to get up and then, you know, get my son and everything like that. So it was just easier for him to hand him to me. And after, when I came home, as far as sleeping, I slept with my pregnancy pillow and some other pillows at like a little bit of an incline, because, you know, whenever you're laying completely flat, it's going to be really hard for you to, you know, get up and use your abdomen muscles. So I slept with my pregnancy pillow and maybe like 3 other pillows too. And I basically slept like sitting up a little bit, but it did help a lot whenever I was getting up out of bed. And I couldn't sleep on my side or anything like that until maybe like 2.5-3 weeks after. I don't know if that's a long time or not, but I just remember not being able to sleep in any position other than my back. And after time went on, it did get easier, and then I was able to move like on my right side or sleep on my left side. It does get a little bit better, but in the beginning, it is better to sleep like at an incline and basically on your back. Oh, and also too, it does hurt to sneeze and it does hurt to laugh. I'm gonna be honest. It hurts to do both of those things because you're using your abdominal muscles, but honestly, like I would hold my incision and like my belly when I would have to sneeze, because it just hurt just a little bit less, because that's how bad it hurt. I just hated sneezing, and I hated laughing and sneezing are normal, so it's hard to avoid those things, but I would pretty much hold my incision area and just hope that it won't hurt as bad as the last time. But it does get a lot easier. And also too, in the car, going over like any bumps, those did hurt too in the beginning. But that was like in the first week and a half. But sneezing is like a lot, like using a lot more muscles, so that does hurt a little bit worse. As far as doing things around the house, I really tried to take it easy and listen to the doctor's advice. After having a C-section, the only thing you should be picking up is your baby. I didn't try to do laundry. I didn't try to like pick anything else up around the house. Like honestly, I just tried my best to take it easy. And you know, my boyfriend did help me out a lot, because if I would drop something on the floor, like he'd pick it up for me, because it kind of hurt in the beginning to do those things. But just listen to your doctor and listen to the advice that they're giving you, because it is, you know, for your benefit. Don't try to rush it, and also don't try to like overdo it, because you don't want to hurt yourself in the long run, like I said before. But I did try to get up and like walking and stuff. It really did help my recovery. It just helped me feel better too, and not just being like laying in bed all day long. So around the 2-month mark, my incision started to feel numb. I don't know if anybody else experienced this, but it just kind of felt like numb in that exact area and a little bit surrounding it. It really didn't like hurt. Honestly, like that was around the 2-month mark. It starts to feel like no. Okay guys, so we have a little guest. He woke up from his nap. I think I pretty much like talked about my whole experience. As far as like my incision care, they did give me some antibacterial soap in the hospital to wash like the area whenever you take a shower and everything. But as far as my experience with like showering, honestly, well, the first time I showered was in the hospital, and oh my god, that shower was like the best shower of my life. It made me feel like a new woman. Like, I did have to call the nurse though for help because I had like a bandage area where my incision was. It was like basically a big piece of gauze over my incision. They told me that I could take that off whenever I did take a shower. I did have to tell my boyfriend to call the nurse because I was scared that I wasn't like doing something right. I don't know. I just had her like come help me, and she did help me, and she did tell me that I was doing everything fine, and I just couldn't see down there. Anyways, that was pretty much like the only time I needed help. Just whenever I got home showering here, I just had to step into the tub, so I did just try to make sure that I was being careful doing that, but I didn't need help like showering or going to the restroom or anything. Someone had to watch my baby, and that was my boyfriend, so I pretty much like did that on my own. I didn't really need help. The only time that I really like struggled was just getting up from the toilet, and I mean, I just tried to take it like really slow and just pace myself. I didn't try to like rush or anything. So I did make sure that I, didn't get up too fast, but other than that, like I didn't really need help, going to the restroom or taking a shower or anything. I was pretty much able to do those things on my own. So after my C-section, I did have a follow-up appointment with my doctor after I think a week and a half. It was like a week and 2 days after we left the hospital, and they just made sure that everything was healing properly, and they said everything looked good. It didn't look infected or anything like that. So just make sure that you take care of your incision and just follow whatever directions that they give you, because you don't want to get an infection or anything like that. The only thing I will add is just, like I said, other than caring for your incision and following your doctor's instructions, don't be afraid to also ask for help. You might need some help caring for your baby and keeping up with everything at home. And I know it can be overwhelming, whenever you feel like you can't do normal things like you used to, but it does get better. I had my boyfriend here for 2 weeks, and he did go back to work after that, and my mom did come help me on the weekend. It pretty much was just me by myself like during the weekdays and stuff, so I really tried my best to just, listen to my body, take it easy. Main thing, I just wanted to make sure that I really recovered. 7 months later, and I feel like I'm completely fine. It was painful, but I can't really say if it was like more painful than a vaginal birth, because obviously I've never had one. This is my first baby. So I'm just speaking from like my experience, but I mean, I know your body goes through different things when you're having a vaginal birth and then when you're having a C-section. So I can't really like compare the two, because I don't know what it's like to have a vaginal birth. Honestly, like, it was all worth it. I have my son here with me now, and that was the best way for him to get here safely and for my health as well. So that was the main thing. Having a C-section was tough, but honestly, it was worth it in my opinion. Whichever way that you have your baby, it's gonna be okay no matter what. Like, whatever recovery, if it's a longer recovery, it's gonna be okay. You're gonna get through it. Your body will heal. Just give it time and just be patient. And just don't expect to heal like so quickly, because sometimes you may, need a little bit longer. And just don't compare yourself to, because everybody's different. Every pregnancy is different. So whichever way you're having your baby, it is okay. And it doesn't make you any less of a mom if you have a C-section. I know like C-sections aren't really like talked about. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions for me or comments, just leave them down below. If you had a C-section, I would love to hear how your recovery was. If you're gonna have a C-section, don't be scared. If you have any questions, I will answer them as best as I can. But anyways, that is it for this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Please like it and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye.